Hey, what's up, everybody? Collapse: How Societies Choose to Fail or Succeed by Jared Diamon. You might recognize the name Jared Diamon from the Pulitzer Prize winning book Guns, Germs, and Steel. While that book is centered on forces behind why and how civilizations are built and expand, Collapse is like the opposite of that. Just take a look at the cover. It really shows the reader what you're going to be getting into here. This is a once great Mayan temple complex, the Edzna ruins in Mexico, now abandoned and depicted in black and white with a largely barren landscape. So, Jared Diamon, author of Guns, Germs, and Steel, has done it again. Collapse is quite hefty at just under 600 pages, but it's structured in such a way as to make it easy to get into and digest. I found that this structure made progressing through the book easier and more enjoyable than it would have been if it wasn't written the way it was. The book is broken up into four main parts, and each part contains chapters that also contain mini chapters. And each of these mini chapters are only a couple of pages. The names of each of the mini chapters are laid out at the beginning of each chapter. I think this is such a good way to do nonfiction because you can clearly see how many parts there will be and see how long they are. This is really helpful for finding good places to stop or deciding how far you can go in the chunk of time you have. Also, seeing what you're going to be reading about prepares the brain to learn better. Plus, it's very convenient if you want to go back to find a part. I can't stress enough how much I love when authors do this. I wish more people would structure nonfiction in this way. So before the four main parts, you have a prologue which lays out the common themes and some of what you'll be getting into. Part 1, Modern Montana. This part serves to orient the reader with the types of topics which will be relevant to each part later. Diamond chose to use a modern time and location, which is not on the verge of collapse, but that we can be familiar with in order to help the reader formulate questions and parallels about modern day living, using the information that is discussed throughout the rest of the book. The main theme in this book is population and quality of life maintenance amidst resource depletion, having to try to do more with less. In this section, Diamond includes the perspectives of people of different positions so that the reader can understand many different viewpoints. It's easy for us to say, don't cut down the trees or adopt a better farming practice, but hearing from the people who are involved in these businesses can be very helpful in keeping a more objective view. He also includes these voices so that later, as we read about different societies collapsing, we can try to see what was happening through the views of the different people involved in those situations, like the chiefs, the peasants, the farmers and fishermen, etc. Part 2, Past Societies. This is where we get into many different societies that did collapse and discuss the forces involved in why things happened the way they did. Diamond establishes lists of ecological factors and social factors that play the biggest roles in the collapses of these societies. Featured in this section are Easter Island, as well as many other Polynesian islands, the Anasazi of the Southwest North America, the Maya and their many different societies, and the Norse Greenland Vikings, as well as the native Inuit. This is where the book really hooks the reader, I think. This section is probably where I spent the most time looking up stuff that Diamond was discussing. Who doesn't get excited talking about Easter Island or the Maya? The next part 3, is modern societies. This is where currently troubled places around the globe facing deep problems today and in recent history. Rwanda and the tribal warfare that has taken place there. Hispaniola, offering a comparison between Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and then China and Australia. Lastly, is part 4, practical lessons. This is where we take a look at everything we learned and apply some questions to ourselves. For example, when we look at Easter Island, we might ask, how could they have wiped out all their own resources? Weren't they able to read the signs that were clearly there? They were on a non-sustainable path, and to do something to fix it? But many of such obvious questions we might come up with could be applied to our current situations around the world today. And this edition of Collapse also features an additional chapter on the Khmer Anchor Society of what is now modern day Cambodia. Every section of this book has reoccurring themes as to how societies are able to sustain themselves or not. Diamon is fond of lists and frameworks of how it all works, and it comes down to resource management. But the subtitle of this book says, How Societies Choose to Fail or Succeed. This is because, according to Diamon, a view of environmental determinism is too simple an explanation for societal collapses. It seems to be some of the very cultural values which are responsible for the unifying of the people to make these great societies possible, which wind up being the very values that lead to their downfalls. It's the societies that are able to make the necessary changes that are the ones to continue to thrive. In the face of imminent collapse, Diamon would ask us to consider which of our core values could we retain and which ones are no longer serving us given the changes in resource availability. Throughout the book, Diamon provides many examples of societies who are able to anticipate or identify the signs of collapse and make the necessary sacrifices and changes to have corrective action to keep things going. Another main theme in this book is sustainability. Jared Diamon is a geographer, and the bulk of this book is on forestry, soil fertility, erosion, mining, and fishing and hunting, and population growth. But this book isn't trying to push eco-oriented progressive thinking. It's more just reporting. Diamon doesn't actually tell the reader what they could or should be doing. He just lays out what did or is happening. And some of the parts in this book can be difficult to get through because there's a lot of suffering described in this book. And sometimes it just feels like everything we do destroys the resources that we need to live. How can we possibly sustain ourselves without destroying the ecosystems? Diamon states that in past times, societal collapses tended to be contained to specific societies, but nowadays, since we're more globalized, a collapse in one place is linked with other places. And by the end of the book, it's clear that we can't just keep doing things the way that we've been doing them if we expect to leave a reasonably livable planet for our heirs. The main thing seems to be an adaptation to identify or anticipate and then act. Regarding the current state of ecological and population issues around the world, Diamon refers to himself as a cautious optimist. One more point that I really loved was this book contains quite a few maps as well as a good-sized chunk of black and white photos, and it felt like the choice of black and white was an artistic statement on the topic of the book. So what do you guys think? What determines which societies last and which ones don't? Is it more the environmental and geographical circumstances, or is it the way the societies themselves function that play a greater role? I gotta tell you, I really loved this book. Even though it was difficult to get through some of the suffering described in this book, I'm really glad I found this. Jared Diamon is quite an author, and if you enjoyed Guns, Germs, and Steel, I'm sure you'll love this too. One of the reasons I do this channel is to share things that I think are important to read, and this book would be one of those. And you can also find the abridged audio book for this online. I listened to the whole thing and read the book, and they're both terrific. Though the audiobook cuts out some of the details and extra stuff, you'll still get all the main points. Okay, that's it for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. This was a really fascinating read. My favorite part was the section on the ancient collapsed societies like Easter Island and the Maya, and Jared Diamon really is a gem. Ha ha ha. If you're interested in how societies thrive or fail to thrive, or if you read Guns, Germs, and Steel, check out Collapse by Jared Diamon.